Hi everyone, I'm Brandy, an OpenSciEd teacher and professional learning facilitator. Welcome to OpenSciEd Chemistry Unit 4, Lesson 1. In this lesson, we'll explore cases, analyze data, and read about how carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is entering the ocean and making it more acidic, which hurts the oysters and the ecosystems that rely on them. We'll develop an initial model and build a driving question board. Let's get started. Here's the lesson at a glance. This anchoring phenomena lesson takes place over 3 days. The teacher's guide says about 40 minutes of material preparation is required. You'll also want to preview the related videos and decide if you want to use the 2 optional ones or not. Since this is the first lesson of Unit 4, we can think about this lesson as happening in 4 parts that align with the anchoring phenomena routine. Let's take a closer look at each part. In the first loop, students explore the anchoring phenomena by watching a video about the Swinomish tribal community efforts to revitalize oysters, and another video featuring a scientist discussing oyster die-off events and how scientists are helping restore the oyster population. We figure out that oysters are an important part of many indigenous peoples and other livelihoods and culture. We also figure out that oyster farms have experienced sudden die-offs of oyster larvae due to something in the water in the Pacific Northwest and elsewhere. We wonder what could be causing the oyster die-offs so suddenly. In the second loop, students attempt to make sense of the phenomena by examining data on potential causes of oyster die-offs and reading an article called The Billion Oyster Project. We figure out increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere interacts with the ocean in some way, making it more acidic. This is called ocean acidification. We also figure out oysters are valuable to the ecosystem and the people for their ability to filter and clean water. In the third loop, as a continuation of the anchoring phenomena routine, students develop their own initial models about how they think the atmospheric carbon dioxide causes problems for the oyster shells. The whole class then works together to build a scientist circle to hold a consensus discussion and build their initial class consensus model. In our model, we'll show that large-scale ocean system changes result in ocean acidification at a particle level, which affects small-scale oyster shells. In the final loop, it's the closing of the anchoring phenomena routine. Students identify related phenomena similar to the effects on the oyster shells. The students then ask questions that will drive the direction of the unit, and those questions are collected and displayed on a driving questions board. Then the students brainstorm ideas for investigation and data we need to answer their questions. Some of these investigations and data sets will come up in subsequent lessons in this unit. We want to know about how carbon dioxide, if it actually makes the water more acidic, how does it do that, and what's really happening to the oyster shells. We figured out that more carbon dioxide makes the ocean more acidic, which can make it hard for oysters to grow their shells. Oysters keep the water clean, and they also can help build reefs to protect coastlines. Now for a few key moments. After watching the videos in the beginning of this lesson, students are wondering what could be causing the oysters to die off suddenly. So this brings us to the key moments in part 6, where the students will attempt to make sense of the phenomena by examining data on potential causes of oyster deaths. Later on in part 9, they'll share out their findings about about this data. As you preview the data before you hand it out to the students, here are some of the key ideas that you'll want to look for. First, for the ocean temperatures, the temperatures actually will end up being eliminated from consideration because die-offs are occurring not only in the Pacific Northwest, which has gotten warmer, but no more than any other part of the country. Plus, the water in the Pacific Northwest is not that hot anyway. Carbon dioxide is going up in the atmosphere, and it might be possibly that some is getting into the ocean, although there doesn't seem to be anything special about the carbon dioxide in the Pacific Northwest. For pollution, the chart on the bottom in the middle, the West Coast actually has the least amount of pollution, even though there's oysters that are being more affected by these overnight die-offs here. So pollution is probably not the cause, even though we know there has been a pollution problem in the past. And finally, ocean acidity, the bottom right diagram. The ocean has gotten more acidic, including on the west coast. pH seems to have gone down. The acidity part has gone up. So acidity is also a possibility. A key moment in part 10 is reading the article called The Billion Oyster Project. Students identify that oysters are beneficial to the ecosystem for their ability to filter and clean the water and build reefs that provide habitat and help hold coastal land in place, reducing impacts from storms and rising sea levels. The article confirms our prediction that carbon dioxide makes the ocean more acidic, which makes it harder for the larvae to build their shells. It goes on to say that communities all along the United States coast are taking old shells and using them to grow baby oysters on. So, the purpose of part 13 is to capture the class consensus ideas as you work together to build an initial model. Here are some key ideas that are listed in the teacher's edition that you should listen for and somehow put on your class consensus diagram, like the one shown here. Carbon dioxide has to be getting into the water somehow. Somehow, carbon dioxide makes the water more acidic. Something is happening to the oyster shells at a molecular level, but we are not sure what happens. Maybe it's some sort of reaction. And this reaction affects the larva in particular very quickly, even overnight. So, where do we go from here? We brainstormed ideas for investigation with our driving question board, and we have a variety of potential paths. So now we wonder how we can break this really large problem down that we can solve it in smaller pieces. Now for a few tips and tricks. So in part 2, my students really didn't mind the lower resolution video quality for the interview with Swinomish Tribal Community Chairwoman Alana Quintasket. But if you feel like it's too distracting, consider approaching the video more like a podcast and provide your students with a transcript so that they can mark that up while they listen to her share. The same is true for the optional Kukwalawut video, in which Alana provides additional cultural context for how seafood is more than biologically sustaining for the Swinomish tribal community, but it's culturally significant as well. If you choose to share this optional video or transcript, I recommend that you do a Google search and share what the statue of the Maiden of Deception Pass looks like with your students, since there isn't one included in the curriculum. For part 6, those data sets with 4 potential causes of oyster die-offs, you'll want approximately a quarter of the class to individually examine each one of the data sets. So those 4 different data sets offer a variety of complexity. The pollution data is definitely the easiest to analyze, followed by the carbon dioxide maps. The ocean temperature map and the ocean acidity maps are more challenging, so you may wish to distribute those materials to students so that each student can be successful with the data they're given. Since my table groups already have 4 students each, I decided to just give them the choice of which data set to examine. I distributed 1 copy of each data set to each table, so students got to decide among their group of 4 who would look into each data set individually. And then later in part 9, the students had a few minutes to get up and go to the corner of the room where I placed a sign with the same title as their data set so they could talk to the others who also analyzed their same data. Then I had them choose a spokesperson to be able to share out to the whole class. You could also have them just go back to their table group and be the representative and share at their table groups instead of sharing it with the whole class. For the personal glossary, you'll co-construct with your students the meanings of ocean acidification. You will also encounter larvae. You know your students best, and especially if you have multi-language learners, you may want to take the time to add larvae into your personal glossary as well. For poster management, you'll need the community agreements that you created way back in Unit 1. You'll be creating an initial consensus model, a driving question board, and ideas for investigation, all of which you need to save for future reference in the next lessons. Since this is Unit 4, you probably already have developed a system for dealing with all of these initial anchoring phenomena posters. But if not, you may want to consider how you will store or display these posters, especially if you have multiple class sections. In my classroom, I had enough wall space to display every class's initial consensus model, which is great because then they could see the variations in those models. But I decided to combine all of their ideas onto one driving question board and one ideas for investigation poster immediately after this class. I've heard lots of other teachers capturing ideas digitally, or another teacher uses a flip chart for each class so she can quickly flip back and forth to post the posters that she created just for that section. There's lots of ideas to think about, and it's pretty easy to customize for your context. There's no right or wrong way. So, to recap, in this lesson, we explored cases, we analyzed data, we read about the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere entering the ocean and making it more acidic, which hurts the oysters and the ecosystem that relies on them. We developed an initial consensus model and we built a driving question board. Up next in lesson 2, we'll decide how to break down the big problem of oyster die-off into a few key subproblems. We'll spend some time thinking about how action is required on multiple scales and develop some initial arguments about which subproblems and solutions we are best positioned to pursue in our chemistry class. Good luck and have fun.